tuning in. I am the Dude Without Fear. And if you're a subscriber, thank you for coming back. If you're a first-time viewer, I appreciate you. If you like what you see, be sure to give me a thumbs up and click the subscribe button and the notification bell so you get notified when I put up new content. For my subscribers out there, I'm so sorry that I haven't put up a video in a while. My mind has been focused on other stuff. But today, being the 4th of July, I wanted to put something out. In my last video, which was a retro review as well, I talked about how most of my retro reviews are not books that I planned on doing a retro review on. They're just books that I've come across in my reading, and they really stood out to me, and I wanted to make a video and talk about them. I said that I had just a couple books in mind that I would like to do a retro review on. Well, I haven't been reading comic books, so what better time than the 4th of July to crack out one of those books that I wanted to do a retro review on, considering that book is Captain America. And this book covers as the man out of time in the 31st century. This is Captain America number 18 from volume 3, I believe. Written by Mark Waid and drawn by the amazing Lee Weeks. So I want to talk about this book because it might be the best Captain America comic ever. And what better time to talk about that than on the 4th of July. So let's pull this puppy out and let's see what we have to go over. So this story starts planet Earth, year 3007. This was the publication date on it is June 1999. Okay, now I love time travel stuff. I love futuristic stuff, and if I were to write something set in the future, I would follow one rule. Well, yeah, one main rule: put it far enough ahead so that if you're making anything futuristic, when we get to that point, there's a more plausible chance that it's there. There's a lot of movies like they're made in like the 80s or early 90s, and they're only like 10, 15 years out. And like society is totally different, flying cars and all this stuff. And it's like, bruh, that's not going to happen in 5, 10 years. So that's one thing that I really like about it, is it's set in the year, it starts out in 3007. So we'll all be long forgotten by then if we make it that long as a society. So it starts out in the year 3007. It says, all around the terrasphere, carbon forms open their eyes to another perfect day. Thanks to their new bright lord, they no longer cower before the tyranny of the Badoon Empire. And as they do every perfect day, Earth's natives demonstrate their perfect gratitude with their perfect sweat of their perfect labor. So Korvac has essentially enslaved Earth, and he has taken away things like, individual thought, and they all dress the same, they all do the same, they all have these tasks assigned to them. It is the opposite of America. He has erased their any and all knowledge of free will, and so society is just whatever Korvac wants it to be, and he just wants it to be like a cog in a machine, and so it's just does the same thing all the time, and it works in this perfect uniform fashion, and like that's how he wants to rule. And so this is not this. So this issue itself is like it's a standalone issue. If you were just buying this back in 1999 off of a spinner rack, then you'd be cool to just read this one comic and you're good. But it ties into that volume that Mark Waid was writing at the time, and I don't remember that from reading it before, but rereading it again this morning, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Maybe I should read those too. So I might read those later. So Korvac has became the. So it says wedded to his cyber half is Korvac, so worshipful of the very nature of machines, he wants nothing more than to transmogrify the world into one. To that end, he has eliminated worry from the lives of its carbon forms. He has eliminated hunger and need, crime and violence from their existence, and all he took in return was their free will. And so he's created this utopian society, but he's stripped them of their freedoms, and so mankind has just been enslaved to what this one dude thinks mankind should look like. And so here we have Korvac just, ruling over his mindless drones and that he's created, and you hear this guy begging, please. And then we've got Korvac saying, please what? Please have mercy on me, Lord Korvac, for I am a whimpering Badoon spy. And so he's got these Badoon held captive, and he says, don't get me wrong, I would be grateful for the way your people flayed the humanity from my bones with one of their cruel experiments, the way they bonded my mortal form with Mother Computer to make me more machine than man, if I thought the memory of the agony and the cruelty of that transformation would ever fade. Amazing, you know how much I hate you, and still you choose to annoy me. Idiots. If I were even remotely afraid of you, if I thought it was even remotely worth the effort, I would simply wave a hand and use my power to manipulate time so that no Badoon would ever have been born. And the people gasp and cringe, and they're in shock because he just waved his hand and erased these Badoon that he had captured, and not only just erased them from where they were out of present time, but he erased them from ever existing because of what they had done to him. And this is the kind of guy that's in charge, that's ruling over the world. And he says, oh, stop cringing. Be glad it wasn't one of you this time. And it says, the awestruck cogs bathe in Korvac's wise guidance. Without him, Earth would still be in the merciless grip of the Badoon. Truly, he is a benevolent God. All Korvac requires in exchange for his beneficence is absolute harmony. He teaches us that in this new world, independent thought is a disruptive cancer. It has been properly diminished, though sadly not yet eliminated. And these guys are hiding here in the shadows, and they're counting down 3, 2, 1, and then they pop out now. And you see all these dudes that are dressed very similar to Captain America, and they tackle his Korvac's number one guy. What's his name? Ooh, give me a second. Primax. He's the hand-chosen. He's Primax is his number one guy. He's the guy that helps him keep track of everything that he does and all this stuff, and he reports information to him and all this. So they jump out and they tackle Primax, and Korvac's shocked, and he says, you fools, what do you think you're doing? And one of them, somebody from the crowd yells, "They're not fools, Korvac. They're patriots." And they're showing their true colors. And he takes off his robe, and it's Captain freaking America. It says, "The men of this land, this world, long for freedom, not order, liberty, not terror. And I've taught them that the power of their united passion can overcome that of any tyrant." And he's charging up towards Korvac, going to do this grand Captain America thing that he always does, and beat the bad guy senseless, and stand up for truth in America. And Korvac says, "Really, you don't say," and just blasts Captain America away. Totally just destroys him. And they're like, he's dead. We fought for nothing. It's hopeless." And one of them's like, "No, did he teach you nothing?" And Korvac's like, "Go ahead, speak. They won't listen. They know better." He says, "Hear me and remember. Remember what it was once like to be independent, to live lives filled with joy, not with subjugation and terror. A hero just gave his life because he believed you could remember and could live free once more. Don't let his sacrifice go unanswered. Together we can be free." And then someone not dressed like Captain America, just one of the people wearing the robes, says, "Free." And then they start to chant, "Free, free, free." And then Primax gets kind of freaked out. He's like, "What?" And they're yelling, "Free, free." And they all rush Korvac. And Korvac says, "Astounding. Even beyond the grave, he vexes me." Well, that won't do. And he stretches out his hand and reboots time. And he says, "Much better. How many reboots does that make, Primax?" 72, my lord." "This stranger who plagues you, who is he? Where does he come from?" "He calls himself Captain America, Primax. He hails from the distant past, and it appears I brought him here. Using my Badoon-inflicted power to travel back in time to the last days of the 20th century, I manipulated him into killing his archenemy, the Red Skull, in order to save all existence. What I kept from the captain was the knowledge that upon his death, the Skull's godlike power would be released, allowing me to lay claim to it. With it, I could avenge myself against the hated Badoon once and for all, and remake the world in my image instead. I can only suppose that when I returned through a time portal to do just that, my enemy followed." And it recaps what's happened to get us to where we are. And it shows Cap jumping through the time portal, following Korvac to stop this great evil that's just been unleashed. And so Captain America followed him through time to where he is now, where he's remade the world in his image and all this stuff. And he has revolted against him and led a revolt against him now up to this point 72 times. Okay? And so he reboots it every time, and that revolt happens, and every time Captain America comes back. He doesn't stop. He just keeps doing it. Now, he has no memory of these things. He doesn't know that time's been rebooted, but every time he does it. And that is Captain America, and that is awesome. So Primax says, "But why, my lord? As outmoded a concept as it must sound, Primax, he was self-motivated. Apparently, he clung to a sense of something from which I've since liberated the human race. We used to call it responsibility." So Cap is doing all this because he feels he has taken that responsibility upon himself, because he did kill the Red Skull, and when the Red Skull was mega powerful, had all this power, I think probably from a cosmic cube. I don't remember. I haven't read it in a while. But he takes all this power and he goes and totally changes the world. And Cap realizes that this has happened. And Cap's like, this is my mess, so I've got to clean it up. And so Korvac continues talking to Primax, says, every time I let him anywhere near the cogs, he inspires revolt. It's getting tedious. I choose to try a different strategy this time. This time, we nip his little revolution in the bud. And so then it goes down to the underground and says, listen to me. And Cap's talking to all these rebel soldiers and all these people who are in on his revolution. And he says, I know your concerns about this. I know how frightening it is to contemplate the enormity of Korvac's power. I know you're afraid, but the antidote to fear is faith. In my time, I have seen hundreds of men triumph in thousands of battles they lost, or they thought were lost. How? Because they believed in their cause, because they refused to be slaves, because the human spirit can be dampened but never extinguished, because deep down inside, every man and woman knows one true thing, that the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. I won't lie to you. The road ahead of us is full of risk. We have to strike hard and fast. Korvac can bend time and space, but I promise you, he cannot bend your will unless you let him. Believe in the strength of unity. Believe in the prize. Believe in their... As he's talking, the crowd behind him just kind of stops looking at him and kind of looks behind him. And he says, believe. And Korvac says, oh, I do. I believe deeply. And Cap's like, Korvac. And he says, I believe that you, Captain, are a meddling nuisance. And he blasts Cap, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's over. It's over. He says, I believe that my mistake was allowing you to become a martyr. But most of all, I believe, and he starts just blasting these rebels away, that a benevolent deity, meanwhile, Primax is just watching all this go down, should never have to brook defiance. And Cap gets mad and calls him a murderer and yells, murderer! He goes, I prefer janitor, actually. Go ahead, do it. It should be easy. Cap's at Korvac's throat with his energy sword that can turn in, or energy shield that can turn into a sword. And so Korvac's like, go ahead, do it. It should be easy. He says, after all, you've done it before. And Cap remembers when he killed the skull and released the power to Korvac. And Cap shuts down. And Korvac says, shame, you almost had me. Almost. And then Cap says, what are you doing? He says, what I always do when things don't go my way. I'm rebooting time. Understand, Captain, I am no longer a man. I am quite literally a god from a machine. My goal is to turn the earth likewise into a perfect mechanism, a synchronous clockwork mechanism. Whenever anything happens to threaten that perfection, I simply manipulate reality, turning back the clock so that I may refine my approach. It's an option I use often. So, bad guy tells the good guy the plan, tells the good guy what he's been doing, and he says, you wouldn't recall it, Captain, but this is not the first time you and I have struggled in this area. You are, however, growing bolder in your sedition, and while I could simply kill you for your crimes, it's far more fitting a punishment to teach you a lesson in humility, to make you admit that you cannot win. Ultimately, you will acknowledge the superiority of machine over man. You will confess the futility of preaching free will to a cowed populace. To that end, from now on, I grant you a power I heretofore bestowed only upon Primax when I elevated him from the rabble. I will allow you to retain your memories, reboot after reboot, so that you will remember your horrible failures. Only in this manner will you truly see the error of your ways, for there is a saying from your time that is particularly applicable here. Those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. And Korvac reboots time again, but this time Cap remembers it, just like Primax has remembered all these reboots before. So Primax has been watching Cap lead revolution against Korvac. And so time goes on, and then it says, fittingly, today is July 4th, the first anniversary of Korvac's banishment of the Badoons, Earth's Independence Day. So it's like a year later. There's been gifts brought into Korvac, praising him and worshiping him, and just from all over the galaxy, tokens of respect from all these other races, weapons, gems, medals, all sorts of stuff. And Korvac's like, disgusting. It's like, while I appreciate the reverence, the alienness of these tokens contaminates my perfect world order. Total xenophobe, Korvac. And he tells Primax to get rid of him. He's like, immediately, my lord. Exactly what, if I may ask, was the last one to arrive? There's this like trailer back there. He says, who knows, some sort of animal perhaps. And then, boom, Cap busts out of it with his soldiers. And he says, good guess, we call it a Trojan horse. Hit him. And so he hits Korvac, and big fight. And then Cap goes to Primax. He says, we can't do this alone. We need your help. And he's like, my help? He's like, you must know his weakness. Trust me, we're here to save you. You no longer have to suffer in servitude. And Primax says, I serve Korvac gladly. He is a benevolent god. Cap's like, no, you've become just another of his pawns. You must have been human at one point. You must remember what it was like to have free will, to have a mind, an identity of your own. What was your name? What was your name? And then Korvac says, stop trying to make him feel unique. A cog is a cog is a cog. Now, let me try this again, shall we? And he reboots again, and Cap will remember this. But so does Primax. And there's no telling how long it's been since Primax was addressed by his name, that he was given at birth, that he was addressed as an individual and not a servant, that he could even think of being anything other than a servant. He's just been conditioned to think this way and to serve Korvac his whole life. And Cap gave him a glimpse that maybe he doesn't have to live his life like that. So then it skips to 3052, okay? Decades later. Nearly half a century has passed without the interference of Captain America. Time enough for Korvac's vast influence to have spread throughout the spiral arm of the galaxy. Primax says, my lord, the ambassadorship from Valoron has arrived. And Korvac says, then we greet it. Come. He says, more cogs. Excellent. Bow down before me and tell me of your planet. And these dudes that get off the ship are bowing down. And then you see Cap hiding in the shadows up here. And he says, that's it, get them off guard, ready, fire, fire. And he jumps out, and they start shooting at Korvac. And Cap jumps on Korvac. And he's like, that's it, don't give him a second to get his bearings, keep firing. And he says, miss me, did you, Korvac? That's because I've spent the last half century amidst the colony worlds, organizing a galactic alliance against you. And let me tell you, it wasn't hard to find allies. So this time, because Cap can remember what's happened before, and it only took one for him to realize that he needs to be bigger than what he's been doing before. So he's spent half a century building up a revolution against Korvac, so that Korvac can be taken down. So you see all these ships flood the sky to fight Korvac and his forces. And Korvac just reboots, right? Reboot. It's back to 3014. So back in time, but Cap still remembers everything. It says, in honor of the acquisition of the Kree Empire, Lord Korvac has ordered double shifts among the carbon forms. The thunder of their march brings a chilling smile to Korvac's face. Until, and he just looks down on the crowd, as he always does, and he sees people dressed up in Captain America type uniforms, wearing the flag. And then Cap just appears behind him and says, that's right, Korvac, rebellions come in all sizes and all colors. Zinla Interspatial Transporter. Give my regards to the ninth dimension. And Korvac blocks it and says, I don't think so. And of course, reboots 3023. And you've got these ships in space the cargoes being dumped as a political protest, inciting a rash of similar acts which cripple interstellar trade and threaten galactic government. Reboot. And it says, I suspect Korvac tires of being the hunted instead of the hunter. And this comic is written from the perspective of Primax. It's like him recalling everything, the data. He says, still he continues to focus his attention on maintaining order at all costs. This time he is succeeding, so far as we know. And then we see these people somewhere messing up a cog in a machine and blows it up, and it causes this explosion, and Korvac's not even surprised, and he's like, it's him. And he says, citizens, return to your formation. Primax, attend to this chaos at once. The cogs must be fed and warmed. I cannot allow for the breakdown of services in my clockwork system. Big explosion. Korvac's kind of taken aback, and he says, I said return to your stations. How dare you defy me? I give you everything. Every last one of you is nothing without me. Less than nothing. And then Primax sees out of the flames. He says, and then the impossible presents itself again. And we've just got this really cool picture, man, from freaking Lee Weeks of Cap coming out of the flames. And he activates his gauntlet and forms a sword. And Korvac's like, you. He says, this is only the start, Korvac. Saboteurs are loose all over the world. Even you can't stop them all. He says, I don't have to. And he takes off Cap's gauntlet and throws it to the fire. He says, I only have to stop one. My patience with you has snapped. Is it time we ended this dance once and for all? What's it going to take for you to submit to my will? And Korvac's holding Cap by the throat, about ready to snap his neck. And then you see his panel Korvac's face, and he's just yelling, what's it going to take for you to realize that when it comes to liberating these pathetic wretches, you will always look. And then you just see the gauntlet with the energy sword, and Korvac's being stabbed in the back while he's holding on to Captain America. And you turn the page, and it's Primax holding that sword, and he says, will he? And Korvac's mad and says, traitor. He says, so he finally got to you, did he? This is the thanks I received for allowing you some small measure of independence. The taste of it has made you ravenous for more. And Cap says, that's the way it works. It took a while to dig it out, Korvac, but even your hand-molded aid has free will. It cannot be eliminated from the human race, no matter how hard you might try. And do you know why? Because, and he throws Cap down, it thrives within Earth's own ruler. You yourself, the grandest, most meticulous machine in the universe, you are governed not by soulless regimentation, but by free will. When you absorbed the skull's power, Korvac, you made one mistake. You allowed too much of your own humanity to remain, which means true perfection will always be beyond your grasp. That's right. Regardless of how you manipulate the present, your biggest mistake was in the past. And those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. And Korvac's furious. He says, you win, Captain. You are correct. And he essentially says, I haven't rebooted far enough. I've got to go back to that moment that I assumed the power from the skull. to be able to stop you and to stop all this so that I can reject that humanity and I can make this system perfect. And so he reboots everything back to that time. And so as before he does that, he says, after all, you're forgetting something. Should you defeat me in 1999, because what the point he's rebooting to is going to be when the big fight's happening, so Cap still has a chance to stop him. He says, if you should defeat me in 1999, you doom Earth to the reality it knew before I altered history, the reality of planetary domination by the Badoon race. You would willingly consign the people of Earth to that damnation. And Cap says, not happily, but they'll be better off, Korvac. They'll have their free will, their lust for liberty, and with that, the fighting chance they've been denied by you. I may not be here to save them, but I have faith that somehow, somewhere, the people will find a new champion. And so Primax is shown igniting the shield in the gauntlet, and the Primax says, Jeremel, my name is Jeremel, and the reboot happens. It says, Korvac was wrong. He said that we were nothing without him, but we can be something. We can be free, so long as we believe in our cause. As of today, I am no longer Primax. Once more, I have a name. It is Captain America. And this comic speaks to me every time I read it, because it speaks about the just sheer force of will that Captain America is, and that Captain America will always stand up for what is right, no matter how many times it may cause him to fall, no matter what the consequences are for him. He's going to do what he knows is right, and he's going to fight for the principles that he believes in: free will, individuality, liberty, justice. He's going to fight for all this stuff. And you know, Captain America to me is so much more than just a character who dresses kind of like America, like kind of like the American flag. He's not just a character. He is a character that represents the spirit of America. He's like what DC tries to do with Uncle Sam from the Freedom Fighters, but even Uncle Sam with the spirit of 1776, like, which from what I know works kind of like a Christmas spirit and believing in Santa Claus and stuff like that. But like Cap's so much more, and Cap is the ideals of America and what makes America so great. And Cap is the living embodiment of that. And that's why Captain America is such a good character, and that's why it's such a shame as to what Marvel Comics has just done to that character over the last 5 years. They just like totally trashed him, and it's a shame. So I don't buy new Captain America comics anymore. I focus on back issues. And in my opinion, if this isn't the best Captain America comic that's ever been written, it's one of them. And so let me know in the comments what you think is the best Captain America comic. And maybe I've never read it, so maybe I need to read it. So what can we take from this comic? A lot of stuff that we can apply to today. A lot of stuff that, you know, like Cap, we need to stand up for liberty, for our freedom, for the ability to be an individual thinker. You know, you don't want to only be able to think and speak how any one particular group thinks that you should think and speak. This is America. You can think and speak how you want to. You have freedom of speech. You have free will from God, your creator, and you have the ability to say and do whatever you want, because of our Bill of Rights. And so in America, Cap in this comic fought for people to have that right and faced all these trials so that people could have that right. But there's been actual real people fight for us to have that right. And we don't need to surrender it. We need to fight even harder to keep that, because that is precious, and that is what keeps America so different from so many other places in the world, because we have this freedom of speech and this freedom to be who we are, and this to be free thinkers, and to think for ourselves. And that's how we need to be, and we need to stand up for that and protect that, because regardless of your political affiliation in America, those are principles that should apply to you as an American. Those principles should be important to you. And those principles should be important to you, not just for yourself, but for others. Captain America would totally stand up for someone to have the right to say and think what they want to. He just did. And we should be able to stand up so that other people can do that too. Whether or not we agree with them, it's still their right. It's what the country was founded on. And that's something that we can easily forget. We just want the other side silenced, and they want this side silenced, and it's like, you can't silence them because it's their right to do it, but you can stand up for what you believe in and show them through your actions. And that's how that comic spoke to me again this time when I read it. And I like that Cap said both times, if you forget the past, then you're doomed to repeat it. And there's a lot of things that has happened in our past, both as individuals and both as a country. And it's those things that happen in our past that help mold us into who we are today, both individually and as a country. And those things need to be remembered, because the dangers of forgetting that, if you navigated a minefield every day, and you know where all the mines are, and then you just somehow erase that path through your memory, then you're not going to remember where the mines are, and you're going to have bad stuff happen. And so we as a country have had bad stuff happen, and we as a country need to remember the bad stuff that's happened so that we can keep that bad stuff from happening again, and teach our children that, so that they can keep that from happening to them and their children, and so on and so forth. And so I love Captain America. I love America. I love each and every one of you, and I love that you have the freedom in this country to say what you want, and the freedom in this country to believe what you want, and the freedom in this country to think and to be an individual. And I will stand up for that, just like Captain America would. And so I think that's all. I might see you again real soon, hopefully. If you like the video, thumbs up. So be excellent to each other. If you're watching this on the 4th of July, have a great 4th of July. If you're watching this after, I hope your 4th of July was awesome. I hope you still got all your fingers. Take it easy.